Hey guys, Nick Campanella here from Taylor Timepieces, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking about something really interesting, and that's going to be engravings on casebacks. Basically, does it make sense to engrave a caseback, and uh, where it does make sense, where it does not make sense, how the value retention works, at least in my view, on if you engrave a case and would I do it? And there's certain times, where it does make sense, and certain times where it doesn't. So, let's get into it. I would say the thing that collectors like the most is a clean case back and a clean watch. You want to make sure that the watch that you receive is up to snuff. I mean, for lack of better phrasing. So a lot of times engraving does not always make sense. Let's be real. If you have a Daytona, it's very rare that somebody wants to buy a Daytona that is engraved on the back and it says, hey, I love you, Carol, congratulations. It's very difficult as dealers to sell something like that, but even more so as, a public consumer, because as a dealer, I do have the resources to remove that case back and to remove that engraving. Now, that usually costs anywhere from $150 to $300, depending on what needs to be done, but that's an additional expense. And don't get me wrong, engravings are cool. I mean, it makes sense. There are a few occasions where engravings do make sense. That is, if you are celebrating a special occasion, if you're giving a gift to somebody that, is not going to want to sell or trade up this piece anytime soon. If you are trying to commemorate a beautiful moment in time, and if I'm looking at this piece here, this 1803 that we have, the engraving says from JFK to AWH, may your life be as inspirational as mine. And again, this isn't the JFK that we all know and love, because this is dated on March 4th of 1988. However, whoever received this piece, really had a lot of, really had a lot of love and really had a lot of compassion towards this other person that wrote the engraving. But, when you talk about value retention, you're talking about, in my mind, anywhere from a 15 to 40% value loss with an engraving. When you're buying something that is engraved, it's important to be, knowledgeable on that, and knowledgeable on, how much you think the value will change, with an engraving versus not an engraving. Sometimes it makes sense, if, like I said, if you engrave on a case back or you engrave on a strap, and that's something that can be easily removed. But, I've seen some pretty terrible engravings on some pretty unique parts of the watch. They engrave on the bezel, they engrave on the inside of the crystal, and that's cool, don't get me wrong, but it's just important to know what you're getting yourself into. Would I engrave? I think it really depends. I think, if I was gifting a watch, like, my father recently turned 60, if I was gifting him a watch, I would want to engrave the watch so that he can always commemorate that moment in time, because, here at Taylor Timepieces, we do believe in, marking those moments, and there's no better way to mark those moments than with those engravings. But if you are a standard collector, it can be not as valuable. It can hurt the value of the piece. So it's very important to know. And I hope this video gave you guys some value on, where I see engravings. I think that sometimes they make sense. You usually see them on more vintage pieces. but it's just important to know, hey, if I'm buying this engraved piece, how difficult will it be to get that engraving off? Usually you can just get it laser welded off, and it costs a couple $100 and you can take care of it. But there are some other occasions where you can't do that, and when you're looking at a watch that is engraved, just know that going into it, so that way you're not wearing a watch that says number one grandson for the rest of your life. And yeah, I think it's a cool way to customize your watch. Um, but it's also important to know that there is that issue with value retention once you engrave that piece. And again, I really appreciate you guys for watching this short video. And if you guys do have any watches with engravings on the case back or on the bezel or on the strap, please let me know. I'd love to hear any stories, any cool stories that you guys have. Drop a comment in the below comments. And yeah, I look forward to creating the next one for you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.